Aye, shepherd's pie. Greetings from the Philippines. Welcome back to the channel for a coffee and a chat. Going to have a little talk today about what is by far the question I have been asked the most times since I started this channel. And when you think about it, it's not strange, it's a fair question. I think we all know that the vast majority of guys who come to the Philippines, the main draw is the Filipinas. They come here looking for, a lot of the time, a love of their life. Not all the time. There are exceptions to the rule. Not everyone, but the vast majority of certainly the expats I meet, certainly the reputation that the Philippines has, and certainly the fact that it's the question I'm asked the most. It is fair to say that the majority of guys who come here are looking for a female company. So the question they ask is, where is the best place to meet a Filipina? Get asked it a hell of a lot. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you, based on my own humble opinion. But before I do, I know this video is going to attract a few negative comments. There will be a few shall we say, morally abhorrent comments about what I'm talking about. A few trolls out there who will be shocked at the comment and they will make some, well, we know what they're going to say. So before I do talk about this, I would just like to make this humble suggestion.
How about a nice big cup of shut the fuck up? Think before you open your stupid mouth, jackass.
So hopefully they have taken my suggestion on board, and I am now talking to the, shall we say, the adults in the room. I will answer the question, and it's a very simple answer. In the Philippines, the best place to meet a Filipina is in the Philippines. Now, that may sound like a stupid thing to say or an obvious thing to say, but it's not really, because a lot of people choose not to do that. A lot of people choose to meet people online, have a long distance relationship before they come here. They're already romantically entwined before they get off the plane. Now, if you are one of those chaps and you're in that kind of situation, then power to you. I hope it works out for you. Nothing against long distance relationships. I have spoken before about the dangers of them and the potential struggles, but they may not work out for a lot of people, but for some they do. But if that's the route you've decided to go down, best of luck with it. But if you haven't gone down that route yet, my advice would be to come here single and meet someone when you get here, because the Philippines is a very easy place to meet members of the opposite sex. It just is. Certainly don't think it's anywhere near as easy as some people might suggest it is. I can only assume when you hear the stories of you get off the plane and everyone's, hey, guapo, guapo, and women are throwing themselves at you. It's either exaggerated or maybe it was like that once, a long time before I came here. I don't know. Maybe that ship has sailed. Maybe it never was quite like that, but it's certainly not like that now. Doesn't mean, however, it's not a very easy place to meet women. It is. It really is. You're not going to have trouble if you come to the Philippines long term, I am sure, unless you have a real personality disorder, and it would have to be a bad one, you're not going to find it too hard to meet women over here. Now, the next question, because obviously the Philippines is over 7,000 islands. I know you're probably going to want me to expand a little bit more on where in the Philippines, which I'm going to do now. But it depends on a lot of variants. It depends on a lot of factors. Now, the first factor would be what kind of Filipina you're looking for. If, for example, you are here to pay to play, if you are looking for
Love you long time.
For want of a better term, then quite obvious, I would suggest. You probably want to go to Angeles City. You probably want to go to Manila. You probably want to go to Cebu. You know, I have not been to those places for that, but I think it's common knowledge that they have a red light areas, districts, etc. I think Angeles City is probably by far the biggest. I know Cebu has a smaller area, Mango Square. I must confess, I went there once. We went there last Christmas. I didn't see any of that, but apparently it's there. And I'm sure there are other places. I was talking to a Filipino guy not so long ago, and he said to me that Bacolod City had a large red light district. Um, just not as established and not as famous as some of the others, but quite big and very reasonably priced, apparently. So if that's what you're looking for, then they're the places. You know, that's where you should go. However, if you're not looking for that, if you are looking for example, you don't want to pay to play, but you are a player or you envisage yourself as being a player, then you've got a hell of a lot of options here in the Philippines. You know, I would imagine, see, I'm no expert on this. I am not claiming to be a player. I'm not claiming to be an expert on these kind of things, but over the last couple of years, you get talking to people and you pick things up. Um, the bigger the city, the bigger the.
A few moments later.
I'm back. I had to stop recording then. For some reason, my neighbour decided to have a revving competition with his boom boom. No idea why, but I was worried that the microphones would pick it up. So I stopped recording. Anyway, I'm back now. So yeah, I mean, if that's what you're looking for, no strings attached, fun, you know, just meeting people, nothing serious, then there's nothing wrong with that. I would suggest that the bigger the city, the more opportunities you're going to have. Uh, the reality is, I mean, you can certainly have casual relationships over here. I know a lot of people that do. On the whole, though, your Filipina, your typical Filipina, going to generalize here, they're quite conservative. A lot of them are looking for a long term relationship, but it's a big enough country. There are enough of those who aren't for you to have some casual fun, as they call it. Can't remember what the term for it is on Tinder. But short-term fun, that's the one. Yeah, the bigger the city. I mean, I have known a few people. I've got some friends over here who claim that Cebu is very good for that. Um, the bigger the city, as I say, the bigger the pool. But it doesn't mean you can't do it in most cities. I know a few players that live in Dumaguete. Yeah, there are less. It is a smaller pool of women to meet on Tinder, etc. But then again, it's a smaller pool of guys looking to meet these women. The vast majority of guys in Dumaguete tend to be in long-term relationships. So there aren't that many who are, you know, shall we say, looking for non-commitment but meeting people regularly. But the ones that are, they're blissfully happy here. So I would definitely say you want to go to a city as opposed to a small island. Certainly, I mean, I've only lived, anyone who watched the channel for long will know I've only lived in Dumaguete and Siquijor. A lot more difficult, if that's what you're looking for, in Dumaguete, in Siquijor, sorry, than it is in Dumaguete. The smaller the community, the more everybody knows everyone, the more there are people who know them who can judge them, uh, the harder it will be, I would suggest, on the whole, to have no strings attached fun. I'm struggling for expressions here. I certainly, when I first came to Dumaguete, I was warned by a few of the older heads, older vloggers, that there was a jungle telegraph. If you went out on too many dates, that no one would touch you and you would become a social leper and no one would take you seriously and you couldn't meet any more women. Well, based on my 2 years living here now, that's a lot of bullshit. It's not true at all. It might be for them. I'm not, you know, I'm sure these guys meant well, but a lot of the expats you'll meet over here, they tend to move in a very small community. You know, they don't really associate with people who aren't sisters or cousins of their partner. and then they tend to introduce guys to, people in that circle. I'm sure you might burn your bridges in that circle, but Dumagetti's, I don't know, 150,000 people. A lot of people do know each other, but a lot of people don't. It's a student city, so you've got a lot of transient people who aren't from Dumagetti originally. So if that's what you want to do, you could do that in Dumagetti. I'm sure you could do that in Bocolola. I'm sure you could do it in any town of a fair size. But the smaller the island, the more tight knit the community, for the reasons I have just stated. Uh, it's gonna, you're gonna find difficulties. That's what you're looking for. You're probably better not going to those places. You would certainly struggle in Siggy Hall, and I'm not basing that on my experiences. I knew a number of good-looking guys who came over for several, and they really struggled, and they didn't like it. That's why they left. So it's a thing there. However, if you are looking for long-term love, if you are looking for a commitment, if you are looking for a Filipina who is going to marry you and look after you, and you're going to wander off in the sunset holding hands, you can get that pretty much anywhere in the Philippines. As long as you really aren't a complete and utter, you will be all right. And even if you are, you will no doubt meet people. It will just probably end badly for you. What I will say is, a lot of people seem to suggest, I've heard people suggest this on other videos, that you should go to the poorer provinces, to Leyte and things like that, to meet women. I've always thought that's a bloody strange thing to say, because do you really want to go somewhere where the only attraction is your wealth? The fact that you stick out because you have money and you can offer financial security, that someone is poor and is desperate for someone to provide for their family, and that is their attraction for you. Well, maybe you do. If you want that, then that is probably good advice. But I don't know how you can be surprised if further down the line the relationship becomes about money, because you are the one who deliberately went to that province, etc., looking for a woman there because it was more traditional, poor, or whatever you want to look at. Then I think you are basically opening yourself up to problems. But that's just me. I'd say you will be all right pretty much anywhere. And one of the things I like about Dumagetti, and have always liked about Dumagetti, is you do not get the same amount of attention as you do in some of the poorer places, some of the poorer provinces, some of the more rural areas. When I've been to Cebu a few times, and you got it there. The second you got off the boat, you got, hello, are you married? Are you single? I've got this. They're really throwing themselves at you. Not in the street, but when you're in a restaurant, people are asking these questions. They're asking you when you go out. They're asking you in the hotel. And invariably, they're married and they're asking for someone else because they've got a cousin or a sister or whatever. I don't like that. I don't. I've ended up in a serious relationship. I always intended at some stage I would, but I don't want to be set up by someone, that I've never met just walking down the street.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
I'm back again. I tell you, this video has probably been one of the hardest videos I've ever made. Just had carol singers. This is a very quiet street, but today, my God, there's been distractions. Anyway, I'm back. Hopefully you've stayed with me despite all that. Yeah, that's not what I'm about. I'm not interested in that kind of thing. I would rather meet someone the old-fashioned way. Having said that, I met Ellen through Tinder, so I'm not against, using some modern things, a bit of internet dating. Some of you might want to come over here and join, I don't know, Filipina Cupid or one of those sites. I know a lot of guys that have done that. I don't think it's necessary. I think you will find most of the time Filipinos are very receptive. But the point I'm getting at, why I liked it in Dumagetti, is, to me, just me, take it however you want to. But if I'm sitting in a place having lunch or something like that, and a woman just comes over and starts talking to me and starts off with the lines, "Do you have a girlfriend? How long are you here for?" That to me is that is my cue to run away. Not literally run away, but I decline. I don't want that because you know I'm not. I know I'm an incredibly handsome man, but I'm not stupid enough to think that this person is ridiculously attracted to me. They're looking for a Westerner. And the fact that they're looking for a Westerner, one can only assume what their motivations are. And not for me. Maybe for you. I know a number of people over here who have met women that way. They've been on the boulevard and a woman has approached them and they've ended up dating. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But talking personally now about Dumagetti, one of the things I like about this place is there are enough expats here for us not to be a novelty. Not too many that the place is saturated with us, as some of the anti Dumagetti people might suggest. We account for less than 3%, so 3 in 100. You know, it's very easy to go out and not see another expat if you go to certain parts of the city. If you go to the expat areas and bars and restaurants, yeah, you'll see a lot of expats. But if you go to the north of the boulevard, you won't see many. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is that's the way I like it because you don't get it thrown in your face all the time. You don't get people coming up. You don't get people accosting you, for want of a better word, asking, if you're single, how long you're here, do you have a girlfriend? Intrusive questions like that. But it doesn't change the fact it is very easy to meet women here in Dumagetti. And I imagine it will be the same for most similar sized cities, probably slightly more than it is in Dumagetti. Now I've got a pack of wolves going. I tell you, today is extraordinarily how noisy.
One eternity later.
One last shot. Not going to give up. Not going to edit that out. Keeping it real. You can see what we deal with, what I have to contend with when I make my vlogs. You're not such a novelty over here. You're not going to have people throwing themselves at you. You will get, girlfriends of people trying to introduce you to their friends, etc., etc. But what I like about the place. I like the fact that if you go out to a bar or a restaurant or a nightclub in my single days, obviously not anymore. No, seriously, not anymore. I don't know why I winked. I'm not a player. I'm in a happy relationship. But yeah, generally, if you made contact with a Filipina who caught your eye, they would 9 times out of 10 they'd be receptive. And I'm not for 1 second suggesting that you just bowl over, into to a woman like and just start talking to her. I mean, obviously you've got to try and get the idea that there's a bit of an attraction. But if you get that idea, if you get a signal that they might be interested, go over, you say hello, introduce yourself politely, ask if you can buy a drink or if you can join them or whatever, buy them a coffee, wherever it is. 9 times out of 10, they will be receptive because they're polite people over here. They're friendly. Now, you may find a few lines into the conversation that they're in a relationship and they're not interested, but it will be done very nicely. And if they're not, away you go. Bob's your uncle, as we would say in the UK. It's the kind of place it is. It is. At the end of the day, your typical woman in a place like Doom, a typical Filipina anyway, is looking for financial security. They're looking for a better life. Isn't everyone in the world? Isn't that what everyone strives for? But the point is, they're not as desperate for it as they are in some of the poorer areas, in some of the cheap, poorer provinces. They're not as desperate. So, the money is going to be less of a major incentive. I believe, in my humble opinion. I haven't heard of, nearly all the horror stories that I've heard from people have happened in other cities. Not saying Dumagetti is great, not saying it's the best place to meet women. I know some guys who come here and have struggled in the sense it wasn't as easy they found it as in Cebu, etc., etc. But trust me, if you have a bit of game, as they say, You will be okay here in Doomagee. So I imagine that applies for most other cities. I really do. So anyway, that is all the advice I can give you. I think I've covered everything based on my limited experience. You know, as I said before, don't fall for some of the hype. You're going to have stunning women, young, half your age, throwing themselves at you, calling you guapo. It's not like that in reality. And if that does happen to you, to me personally, that would set alarm bells ringing. Because, the kind of people who are going to be like that are generally going to be in quite desperate situations. They're going to have a number of children. They're going to be single. They're going to be struggling with poverty and they are looking for a way out. And if you like them and you want to, give them the way out, power to you. I'm not one of these misogynists who's going to say, stay away from single mothers and all that bullshit. You've got to do what you're happy with. I'm just saying, for me personally, when I came here, I wasn't desperate for a relationship. I wasn't looking to find the love of my life. I don't believe in fairy tales anymore. I'm 53 years old, divorced twice. I just tend to play things as they come. If I met someone, I met someone. If I liked them after a while, you know. So, as soon as I get someone, meet this, meet that. Oh, have you got a girlfriend? Blah blah blah. I just think I don't want to do this. I don't want to. I don't want to get their hopes up. I don't want to lead them on. I don't want to feel guilty. I just walk away from that kind of thing. But if you want that, if that's what you're looking for, if you want it to be easy, if you want to be approached by someone and you know, then the whole of the Philippines that could happen to you. I would suggest the more exclusive, expensive parts of a city, Cebu, Manila, you're going to get less attention. You know, I really do imagine that's the thing. Somewhere like Hall, which is full of young male backpackers with six packs and things like that, which is a very conservative community and very tight knit. You're going to struggle to find, a girl half your age, etc. Assuming you're looking for that, I'm not looking for that. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to be realistic. I know some of the guys here want to pay to play out and make no judgments. Some guys are looking for a woman half their age. That's up to them. I'm just saying. I just want people to be realistic. When I get asked questions, and it's a question I get asked a lot, I try not to make judgments. I just try and answer the question the best as I can. And as I've said many times, most of the guys I know here who are in the best relationships, the happiest relationships, the age gap is very small. I found it very refreshing when I first got here. There's a number of guys I know been together like 30 years, married, etc. There's about 5, 6 year age gap. I mean, Ellen's, we've got a big age gap in the sense she's 29 and I'm 53, but she's not in her early 20s and I'm not 70. Um, I know some good guys who are in relationships like that. I make no judgments on them. I just think, if you're going to come over here looking for that kind of a relationship, then, you're more likely to encounter difficulties. You're more likely to struggle in having things in common. You're more likely to find ultimately that the relationship is fundamentally financial. Some people are happy with that, some people aren't. As I say, this video is going down a different route now. That's not what I was talking about. I was just trying to answer the question. So in a Pracy, if you want red light fun, go to the red light districts. If you want to have casual, no strings attached, you tend to want to stick to the larger medium-sized towns upwards. You're going to struggle to do that in a quieter province, in a smaller village, in a tight-knit community like Sikihor. If you're just looking to meet someone who you're compatible with and who you can potentially have a happy long-term relationship with, I think you'll find them anywhere in the Philippines. I wouldn't say any island is any better than any other. Just takes a bit of time. You may not find them in the first couple of weeks. May take you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months. But honestly, I'd be very surprised if you didn't find them. If you're going to preempt things and you're going to go on dating sites or whatever, your choice. But Slowly, slowly catching monkey, as the expression goes. You're rushing. Anyway, going to end the video now. Hopefully you found you enjoyed it. I do apologise for all the interruptions. They were beyond my control. If you did enjoy the video and you liked it, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, it'd be fantastic if you did. But whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe and be lucky.